Maestro Haitink, it is a tremendous honor to meet you, and on behalf of the Conductors Guild, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. I thought we might start by having you share with us what conducting was like when you began back in the Netherlands in the 50s, and what sort of training did you receive, and who were some of your role models?
Well, in any case, at that time, there were not that many conductors, young conductors who wanted to conduct. The scene has changed dramatically. I was a product of the conductors course of the Dutch radio. At that time it was very, very important, because if you were admitted, you would be 6 weeks there, 3 weeks without orchestra, but then 3 weeks with orchestra. As the Dutch radio at that time had many orchestras, at least 4, you had the chance to be confronted with different styles and different repertoire. I started conducting, I started to talk about conducting. Well, now I have to go back a little bit. I studied the violin, and my teacher at the beginning, when I was still very young, was a member of the Concertgebouw Orchestra in Amsterdam. And he whetted my appetite. He always talked about, I always asked him who's conducting, what is he doing, how is he, the whole scala. And then I went to the conservatorium as a violinist, and there was an official conductor's class, which I did enjoy, which I didn't join, sorry.
Sure.
For several reasons, not that I didn't like it, but I didn't have the necessary, how do you say that in English? The necessary, now I'm lost.
No. Prerequisites, or
exactly, that's it. I didn't have the necessary requisites. But I was sitting in the orchestra of the conservatorium, and the conductor there was a very peculiar man. He was together with, I don't know if the name says anything, together with Lothar Wallerstein, head of the opera department. He was very eccentric. He was very talented in making enemies, and you had to love him or you hate him, and nothing in between. And I loved him because I thought he was a very special man. And one day I went to him after rehearsal. I said, "Listen, I would like to have some lessons. Will you do that?" He said, "No, you don't have any talent." And
oh no!
Yeah, that was so. That was it. But then a year later, playing again in the orchestra, the violin concerto of Tchaikovsky, because the concertmaster had to do his prix d'excellence, he turned to me, the Hupka, that was his name, Felix Hupka. He said, "Hey, you wanted to conduct, huh?" "Yes, no, take over then.
Oh,
I want to listen." You see, that sort of man he was.
Yeah.
And then he came afterwards and said, "Okay, I will give you some lessons."
Well, it was a bit of a trial by fire there.
Oh yes. And I, very proud, asked him which scores should I bring. He said, "What scores? No scores at all. You have to learn to play a passage, a lyrical passage on your violin. it was not very nice towards my official teacher. So one more enemy. So it happened.
Well,
and then I also, by trial and error, I was accepted for the Dutch radio course, because the director of the conservatory was an extremely nice man, extremely lovable, and he couldn't say no. So when I asked him, can I get access to that, he said, oh no, of course not, but I will do what I can.
Wow, that's fabulous.
And so it happened. And then my teacher became Ferdinand Leitner. He was a music director in Stuttgart. He was an extremely talented man and extremely interested in a career for a young conductor, if you could believe in it. And there were two conductors then, one very good one, Dutch conductor, and Ferdinand Leitner. And there were two groups, 12 students, and we had to trial conducting. Hij is de Oberonverture, and the very good Dutch conductor said he's an idiot. And Ferdinand Leitner said, yes, he's an idiot, but I want to try it out with him. And he added me as number 13.
Oh, wow.
And then after 3 weeks, I think the Dutch conductor came to me, extremely nice of him. He said, I have made an error. And nowadays, where I'm very involved in talking to younger conductors and give these, well, I hate to use the word master class because it's nonsense, but these conductor classes, now I know what the difficulties are and how difficult it is to have a good judgment.
Sure.
But conducting is a very strange profession. I hope you agree with me.
Absolutely.
And it's very difficult to know what makes a conductor and what makes an orchestra tick with a conductor, etc., etc. A long scala of unknown things.
Well, your rise was quite fast, I think, starting from your young conducting days, and led to making a lot of recordings early in your career. And you have since produced more than 230 albums for labels such as Columbia, Decca, EMI, and Philips Records. Many of these projects were undertaken while you served as chief conductor of the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra and principal conductor of the London Philharmonic. Do you have any personal favorites from this output?
Well, that is very difficult. First of all, it's a very long time ago for me. And as you know, the recording industry has changed so much.
Yes.
And when I started with the Concertgebouw, and of course it was quite premature, let's face it, and I was the first one who felt that, and I'm still thinking that I started far too young, but well, that's how it went. And I stayed there for 28 years, so maybe it was not that bad. But I had a long time to be able to prove myself and to be able to come into real contact with the orchestra, which at that time was a very prima donna orchestra. Also, mentalities of orchestras have changed enormously for the better.
Prima donna in what sense? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, in what sense? Dat they are fantastic. But it's not the answer of your question. What do I remember from my recordings? Well, I shy a little bit away from my own recordings. And I always quote Carlo Maria Giulini, who said, I don't listen to my own recordings happily because I can't learn from it, which is not entirely true, but one can learn from one's less good things in any case. But maybe that's the reason. It is as if you look into a mirror all the time.
Yes.
And I think we don't like that so much.
I would agree with that. How have your choices of repertoire evolved throughout your career?
Well, of course, my time in Amsterdam has left an enormous imprint of me. 28 years. And the structure in Amsterdam is, there's not so much the title of music director, but just you are conductor of the Concertgebouw Orchestra. And there were 3 directors, and one was an artistic director. And you couldn't bypass him because he decided at the end what one should do. And he was an extremely human and an extremely erudite man. And of course he has now died also several years. But I'm still extremely grateful to him because he took me by the arm and showed me the marvels, the wonders of the French repertoire, for example. He was very broad-minded. He said, listen, I'm not so much a Stravinsky admirer as I should be, but I think we should do the sacred works of Stravinsky. And I did that, and God knows how I did it, but I did it, and Trainee and Requiem Canticles, and well, the whole series. So from the beginning I was trained to have a wide repertoire, for better, for worse. And it just came up yesterday. I had a talk with Tony Falk about programs. And he said, well, you are quite easy. You give more opportunities to us, repertoire-wise. And I thought, well, that's because of this training.
Yes.
I did a lot of Dutch music. Maybe too much, but I did it. And at that time, that was also very important from a cultural point of view.
Of course.
The orchestra should be, as it is here, a center of the community, and they should do something for the community that I admire in American orchestras.
Is there a specific composer that you feel drawn to, someone that keeps bringing you back and you repeat their works?
You mean contemporary?
No, not necessarily.
Well, I have this label on me, Mahler and Bruckner. But you can't conduct Mahler and Bruckner the whole time. And to give you an example of the way I like to operate, I was asked by the Bavarian radio, Bavarian orchestra, who give official concerts, public concerts, to do Haydn Schöpfung. I never did Haydn Schöpfung. And it was a feast for me, and that was accepted extremely well. And we will do it now. I was opening in the Salzburg Festival. And these things I love. My admiration for Mozart is too big I mean, that is such a wonder. Bach is for me, I always say one doesn't have to conduct the pieces one would really like. You also should lean back in your chair and love composers who you don't conduct.
Sure.
And my love for Debussy. When I am in a special mood, I love to listen to the 24 Preludes by Debussy, played by Christian Zimmermann. I think that's one of the pearls of the record industry. And I love La Mer above everything. I even said once a very stupid thing that will give away all the Mahler symphonies for La Mer. That's of course also not true.
Right.
It illustrates my way of thinking.
I should mention that we're filming today at Symphony Hall in Boston, and I would like to acknowledge and thank Claudia Robena and the staff of the Boston Symphony Orchestra for allowing us to use their facility to film this interview. And using that as a segue, you've had a wonderful relationship with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, serving as their principal guest conductor from 1995 to 2004, and now hold the position of conductor emeritus, and recently conducted an all-Ravel program with the orchestra. And I've learned that you'll soon be traveling with the group to New York City to offer some concerts there. Can you tell us a little bit about this partnership with the BSO, how it began, and perhaps a few favorite memories?
I love the BSO. And that started from the very beginning, and the very beginning was in 1971. And of course I had no idea, only that it was a great orchestra, etc., etc. But apparently it clicked, and from that time on I came back regularly, sometimes with bigger gaps, but now I nearly come back every year. I think that the BSO is a real great orchestra, has a great potential. What I love about them, for example, is the way they play the French repertoire, which nowadays seems to disappear from many orchestra repertoires. And that they also, of course, play the great repertoire. And they have an enormous scope of activities with the whole Koussevitzky thing, the fund, which made it possible to give composers a chance to compose works like the Symphony de Besson, Stravinsky. It's fantastic. That has the imprint of the BSO.
Sure.
And there's only one thing, there are many others. And they had some wonderful conductors. Koussevitzky, of course I don't remember. I only have one CD of him, which I really love to have. That is the recording of the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra, which was made here. Not the first performance, but the second performance, a week later. But that was a historical thing. Poor Bartók was dying and poor and couldn't pay his medication, and then I got this fantastic offer of a check of $1,000 by Koussevitzky, and at that time that was a fantastic thing. And then very cynical of the world that after that enormous success he only lived for another 3 months, I believe, and then he would have become so rich for all the that's music life for you.
Yes.
But Boston has a lot to offer. So I love them. It went extremely well, and I thought, well, what can I add to it? What can I say? And then this moment came with the trumpets, and the orchestra was used now. That is in 4. Yeah. And fine if you want to be in two, and maybe that is more musical, but then you must be very clear. And that is, I don't have many things to say, but sometimes you try to get it from there. And listen, you are here, you must do it here with the orchestra, and don't dream away. That you make that impression, and you feel the music very intense, I know that. And it comes across, but it's very dangerous to be all the time, not all the time, but I'm not good in imitating, but maybe you understand what I mean. Of course, we have the music, we must have the music here, but we must bring it to them.
You have embraced the pedagogical side of conducting through your involvement in master classes, for example, at the Lucerne Festival. Can you tell us about your philosophy on teaching conducting?
Well, I'm not a teacher, but I love to be confronted with young talent, and I think that's important. Of course, I have something to tell them, some experience. I can't deny that. But I have not lost the feeling that one doesn't know enough about conducting, and we will never be able, because it's such a fluid, such a strange thing, this whole contact with an orchestra, to make them motivated, which is very difficult and very important. And I started that very low key. I started it to do a week with the Luzern Hochschule University. And I think I had at that time 20 choral conductors, young kids. But apparently it went on and on and on, and yes, it is now an important part of the Luzern Festival, and it frightens me. I told you that at the beginning, when in Holland with the radio course, that there were not that many, there were 26 chosen, and maybe there were 40 or 50. But now, you get so many applicants, and this year 290, I believe, or 60. And that is, of course, a nice sign, yes, but also, how do you choose the right people? Because it is very difficult to really, especially when you have to make, first of all, you have to look at videos, which I only do later on. So I have two extremely good people who choose them, try to choose them. And as we all, they make mistakes, me too. I see the last 50. And then the final thing is that you have to choose from 30. And then we can only have 7 people. So what we do, my wife and I, my wife is very involved in this, that after the final decision, which is in the afternoon, we take them all to our home for dinner. I tell you, that is a nerve-wracking thing. For the first half hour, thank God there is wine in the world. And after a few glasses, they get a bit nicer to each other, because I find it important to involve them, also the ones who are not chosen. And I try to get them in as observers, because you can, if you can learn something, you will learn as much from being an observer than as doing it yourself. It's very tricky, the whole business. And I'm always dead tired after these 4 days, but it gives me enormous pleasure. Yeah.
Any final advice or insights that you would like to share with both young and seasoned conductors?
Oh God, I don't know. don't forget the music. Don't put yourself into the scene as a sort of imperator, as a sort of God knows what. Have respect for musicians. Listen to the musicians because they have something to offer. Don't tell them immediately after 1 minute of a rehearsal. Don't tell them you have fantastic insight in this masterwork. Give it the time to get together. Something like that.
Well, it's my pleasure to present to you the Theodore Thomas Award on behalf of the Conductors Guild, and it reads, "In recognition of outstanding achievement as a conductor and extraordinary service to one's colleagues in advancing the art and science of conducting, reflecting honor upon our profession." Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, that is an honor for me. A great honor. I don't know yet exactly how many conductors you have in your guild, but I think 1100.
That's correct.
And that's amazing. And I only can say, I wish you all happiness in your work, all contentment in music. Don't build a bridge between musicians and yourself, but be with them and enjoy this wonderful art and this very difficult art. So I wish you all the very best.